The path to constitution. So unlike South Africa, India, much of this consensus, it had evolved during the freedom struggle. Our national movement was not only a struggle against a foreign rule, but also a struggle to rejuvenate our country and transform our society and politics. So there were differences within the freedom struggle. Even today, differences exist about the path India should take. But still some basic ideas are acted by all the Indians. Motilal Nehru and 8 other Congress leaders, they drafted a constitution for India in the year 1928. So in the 1931, the resolution of the Karachi session of Indian National Congress, it dealt how independent India's constitution should look like. So both these documents, they were committed to the inclusion of universal adult franchise, right to freedom, equality, and to protect the rights of minority in the Constitution of Independent India. So some basic values were accepted by all the leaders before the Constituent Assembly met to deliberate on the Constitution. India then gained experience in the working of this legislative institution during the British rule, and it helped the country to set up its own institution. Indian constitution adapted many institutional details and procedures from the British laws, like the Government of India Act, for example. Next is Constituent Assembly. The drafting of the document called Constitution, it was done by an assembly of elective representatives. They are known as Constituent Assembly. So these elections to the Constituent Assembly, they were held in July 1946, and first meeting was also held in July 1946, and then country divided into India and Pakistan. So Constituent Assembly also divided into Constituent Assembly of India and Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. Indian Constitution had 299 members. Assembly adopted the Constitution on 26th November 1949, and it came to effect on 26th January 1950. Then 26th January every year came to be celebrated as Republic Day. Constitution doesn't reflect the views of the members alone. It expresses a broad consensus of its time. Many countries had to rewrite their constitution because the basic rules were not accepted to all the political parties or the major social groups. So in some countries, the constitution exists as only a piece of paper. Nobody follows it. But our constitution is different. Over a last half a century, several groups questioned some provisions of our constitution, but no political party or social group ever questioned the legitimacy of constitution itself. This is the unusual achievement for any constitution. So second reason for the accepting the constitution is that the Constituent Assembly, it represented the people of India. No universal adult franchise at that time. So the Constitution Assembly could not have been chosen directly by all the people of India. This was elected by the members of existing provincial legislatures. And then this ensured a fair geographical share of members from all the regions of the country. Assembly was dominated by Indian National Congress, the party which led the India's freedom struggle. Congress itself included a variety of political groups. Assembly also had members who did not agree with the Congress. Assembly also represented members from different languages, groups, castes, religions, and occupations. And this Constituent Assembly was elected by the universal adult franchise, and it worked in a systematic, open, and consensual manner. Basic principles were first agreed and decided. Then a drafting committee headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, they prepared a draft constitution for discussion. Several rounds of discussion took place. 2000 amendments were considered, and the members spent 140 days and deliberated over 3 years. Every document presented, every word spoken in this Constituent Assembly, it has been recorded and preserved, and this thing is known as Constituent Assembly debates. These debates are printed in 12 volumes, and this provides us the rationale behind every provision of the Constitution, and they are used to interpret the meaning of Constitution. In this image we see Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Next is the guiding values of Indian Constitution. Let's read about the dream and the promise. So we notice that a name is missing from the sketches of the makers of Constitution, and the name is Mahatma Gandhi, because he was not a member of Constituent Assembly. But there were still many members who followed his vision. So many years ago, while writing Young India in the year 1931, he spelled out what he wanted the Constitution to do. He said that I shall strive for a Constitution which will release India from all the thraldom and patronage. I shall work for an India in which the poorest people should feel that it is their country and in whose making they have an effective voice. An India in which all the communities should live in a perfect harmony. There can be no room in such an India for the curse of untouchability or for the curse of intoxicating drinks and drugs. Women will enjoy the same rights as men. I shall be satisfied with nothing else. So this is the image of Mahatma Gandhi. Next is Dr. Ambedkar. The dream of an Indian has been eliminated inequality. So every Indian had a dream to eliminate the inequality. This was shared by Dr. Ambedkar. He played a key role in making of the Constitution. He had a different understanding of how inequalities could be removed. He often criticized Mahatma Gandhi and his vision. In his concluding speech to the Constituent Assembly, he stated his anxiety clearly. He said, "We are going to enter into a life of contradiction. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. How long shall we continue to live this life of contradiction? How long shall we continue to deny the equality in our social and economic life? So if we continue to deny it for long, we will do only by putting our political democracy in the peril. So we must remove this contradiction at the earliest moment possible. And those who suffer from inequality, they will blow up the structure of democracy with this Constituent Assembly which has so laboriously built up." So next is Jawaharlal Nehru. So he gave speech at midnight of 15th August 1947. What he said: "Long years ago we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly, not in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of this midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to a life of freedom. A moment will come, which comes very rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, it finds utterance. It is fitting that at this solemn moment we take the pledge of dedication to the service of India and her people, to the still larger cause of humanity, and with pride." So in this image we see Dr. Ambedkar presenting the draft of Constitution. Next is philosophy of the Constitution. So values that are inspired and guided by the freedom struggle. They were in turn nurtured by it. They form the foundation for India's democracy. These values are also embedded in the preamble of the Constitution, and they guide all the articles of the Indian Constitution. Constitution begins with a short statement of basic values. This is only known as preamble of Constitution. Taking inspiration from the American model, most countries in the modern world, they chosen to begin their constitution with a preamble. Preamble of the Constitution reads like a poem on democracy. It contains the philosophy on which the entire Constitution has been built. and it also provides a standard to examine and evaluate any law and action of the government and to find out whether it is good or bad. This preamble makes up the soul of the Indian Constitution. We the people of India. So the Constitution has been drawn up and enacted by the people, their representatives, and not handed to them by a king or any other power. So it is sovereign. Sovereign means people have the supreme right to make decisions on both internal and external matters. No external power can dictate over the government of India. Socialist means wealth is generated socially and should be shared equally by all in the society. Government should regulate the ownership of the land and industry to reduce the socio-economic inequalities. Next is secular. Citizens have the complete freedom to follow any religion, but there is no any official religion. Government treats all the beliefs and practices with equal respect. Democratic, a form of the government where people enjoy political rights, elect their rulers and hold them accountable. So government is run according to some basic rules. Next is republic. The head of the state is an elected person but not an hereditary person. Next is justice. Citizens cannot be discriminated on the basis of caste, religion or gender. Social inequalities need to be Next is liberty. There are no unreasonable restrictions on the citizens in what they think, how they wish to express their thoughts, and the way they wish to follow up their thoughts in action. Next is equality. All are equal before the law. The traditional social equalities need to be ended. Government should ensure the equal opportunity for all. Next is fraternity. That means all are like the members of same family. Nobody should treat the fellow citizens as inferior. Let's learn about the institutional design. Constitution is not just a statement. It is about embodying these values into institutional arrangements. So the document called Constitution of India, it is all about these arrangements. It is very long and detailed. It needs to be amended quite regularly and needs to keep it updated, and there is a need to keep it updated. Who crafted the Indian Constitution? They felt that it has to be in accordance with people's aspirations and changes in the society, and they made provision to incorporate changes from time to time. These changes are known as constitutional amendments.